Okay, right now we're going to do Elf Mania from 1994, one of the most visually stunning games on the Amiga 500. In my personal opinion, I'd say it looks even better than Street Fighter II for the Super Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo came out 5 years after the Amiga. The gameplay is different than your typical fighter with the coin mechanic. Some people like it, but a lot of people don't. But today what we're going to talk about is the technical tricks and everything that makes this game look so good. Alpine 9000, who created this debugger. He also did a video on Elfmania and how it works, so I'll put a link to that in the description. So where should we start? Here's the palette visualizer. The game is in 32 colors for most of the screen, except for the bottom part, which is just 16 colors. They also do a lot of gradients up here and on this color and down here with the water. So right now the palette is 106 colors right here, and in game it's 93 at this moment. If we take all the bit planes off, these are the sprites. You can watch the fish here. So here's sprite 0 and sprite 1. They're attached and multiplexed across the screen. Sprite 2 and sprite 3 add to that, as does sprite 4 and 5, and 6 and 7 finish off the player's head here. So if we play it and then we put on the sprite visualizer, you can see that up here is attached 0, 1, attached 2, 3, attached 4, 5, and so on along the top. And then with the fish down here, if we look, let me pause it for a sec. So each fish is an attached sprite, and you can see it uses them all. You got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7. So you'll never see more than 4 fish on the same scan line, because they take up all the sprites. The screen is 288 by 256, and then 288 across, which allows them to use all 8 sprites. So for the bit planes, we got bit plane 0, 1, 2, and 3. And you'll notice that those 4 bit planes, or 16 colors, make up everything down here. But with the copper visualizer on, you can see that BBLCon 0 is 5200, so it's 5 bit planes from here all the way to when it changes it right here. BBLCon 0 is 4200, so 4 bit planes. What about the area in here between the top of the water and where it changes to 4 bit planes? So with the palette visualizer, you can see that the 16 colors down here are replicated right here in the first half of the 32 colors. So they're able to treat this whole area as the same palette. But watch what happens when we add the 5th bit plane. The legs here that are blue, like the water, and don't go past this 4 bit plane line here. When you click the 5th bit plane, they can use these colors that are in the second half of the palette on this side for their legs that they normally would when they're jumping and everywhere up in this part of the screen. And you can see the copper move when you're jumping, so it always aligns with the top of the water, which is easier to see when you're here in the palette visualizer and you jump. So the star of this level to me is this beautiful water down here, and it's done in a very interesting way. Because the game is in single playfield, if you did line scrolling, it would also affect the characters and it would warp their legs and look weird, so they have to do it a different way. But if you put on the blitter visualizer, you can see what's going on. It's actually using the blitter to blit in each of these thin horizontal strips and to make it look like line scrolling. And it's doing all this at 50 frames per second, never drops. So the only concession they made, and I just learned about this a couple of years ago, is that sometimes when you're fighting, the waterfall in the background, the animation will stop if things get too busy. For the bottom part of the scrolling, it's done in a different way. Right here, this yellow, the BBLCon 1, are the bit plane playfield horizontal scroll values, and those change down the screen. And then there's also a bit plane modulo for the odd planes and a bit plane modulo for the even planes here. So if you turn off BBLCon 1 scroll, look at that. The bottom no longer scrolls properly. So the other things to look at, well, we have the copper visualizer going. Up here, the white is where it's multiplexing the different sprites across the screen. Right here is the copper sky, the blue in the background there. And then these green are where they change the palette for the water. So here's the DMA stats. It's using quite a few slots for the copper, the blitter a lot, CPU a lot, and then the most is the bit plane because it's 5 bit planes. This level with the dock is probably my favorite visual level in any Amiga game. I think it's just so beautiful. Very sadly, the artist Antti Kallionen passed away, but his work here lives on. So all the levels have the same basic setup, but there are some differences, and it's fun to see how the concepts are applied to each different level. So with the blitter visualizer, again, it's splitting in these horizontal strips, and it's 5-bit planes here and here, but then 4-bit planes here with the same colors in these two areas again. One of the differences is the use of sprites, though, and here it's for the posts. So they're attached 0, 1, and 2 and 3, and 4 and 5, and 6 and 7. So it's using all of them. So you'll only see 2 posts on screen at the same time. Now, I always thought that this little silhouette in the background was a sprite, but if you put on the blitter visualizer, it's actually being blit. And the final thing to show in this stage is that when you turn off the BBLCon1 scroll, look at that, it was kind of crazy in the bottom section of the dock if you turn that off. Another gorgeous level here. Look how nice that chalet looks in the back with the swinging sign and the lamp. And then when you go over here, you can see that there is a mountain and a moon and the stars. So if I pause it and take the bit planes off, you can see that they're all sprites. And there's horizontal and vertical multiplexing going on with the sprites here. This is sprite 0, and when you attach it with sprite 1, you get 15 colors. But yeah, you get all these parts of the HUD up here, and then you get part of the moon, part of the mountain, and also part of the tiki torch that when you play it animates. And then with sprite 2, you start getting some of the stars, and sprite 3 attaches with them, sprite 4, sprite 5, sprite 6, and sprite 7. So with the sprite visualizer, if we wanted to, for example, look at just attach 0 and 1, well, it's right here, it's right here, 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 then here, and then here, and then here. The copper visualizer also looks quite different in this level because of all the sprites. All these white areas are controlling the sprites. Over here, there's a whole bunch of them. And yet, incredibly, it still all runs 50 frames per second. The interesting part about these little tiki heads is that just the top is a sprite, and the rest is just part of the map. So it's different than the levels we've seen so far, because in those right here where it becomes 4-bit planes, it would have the same palette all the way from this line right down to the bottom. But here it just has that little strip that does that. And then the part below here has a somewhat unique palette to draw this whole area. Another visually stunning level here. You got the shimmering water in the back, and you got the fire, and you've got the octopus arms. With the glitter visualizer, the shimmering water is actually all small little blips. Here's just the sprites with the octopus arms. With the sprite visualizer, again, it's all of them. Attach 0, 1, attach 2, 3, attach 4, 5, and attach 6, 7. So as it plays here, you'll never see more than 4 on screen at once. Here in this level, we get well over 100 colors at times, because you got the copper sky in the background. For the sprites, you got all the containers at the front. So this one, and this one, and these crates. And then in the background, you've got this silhouette that's being blit to make it look like parallax. It's probably just a 1-bit plane blit, so it's pretty fast as one color. And you'll notice too that the characters are blit in different sections. So like most fighting games, it's probably all broken up into different body parts. Here's the final level, another beauty with a lot of background animations with a great checkerboard floor. If you take the BBL Con scroll off, it goes a little haywire. Look at that. And here the sprites are all these fire holders. So here's the Terramark logo in the background. They ended up merging with Bloodhouse, who made Stardust and Super Stardust for the Amiga, and they're still around today as Housemarque. So this game really showed off their technical talents. When I think of the most beautiful games on the Amiga, I always think Lionheart, Agony, and Elfmania. It's just mind-blowing what they were able to do here with just 32 colors and sprites. And here's the title screen, which, by the way, is in overscan 352 by 286. So the technical prowess is found all throughout the game. It really is an incredible graphical showcase for a machine that was made 9 years before this game came out. Big compliments to all the coders and the artists. And kudos to you for watching. Thanks so much. Always appreciate it. Please like and subscribe and comment if you haven't yet. Thanks so much. Till next time, take care.